Have you ever noticed something strange, almost unsettling? The people who manipulate others rarely argue, rarely raise their voices, rarely look even slightly aggressive. Isn't it wild? They remain calm while you feel the pressure building. They say less while you somehow end up explaining more and more. And before you even realize what happened, the conversation ends with you feeling like you've lost your footing. How did that shift even occur? How did they gain ground without raising a finger? It happens because dirty players don't win through conflict. They win through your reactions. The very moment you feel the need to defend yourself, clarify your intentions, or prove your point, the power quietly slips away from your side. What so many people don't realize is that influence doesn't come from delivering the perfect speech or saying the smartest thing. No, true influence comes from knowing when not to speak at all. This is the deeper insight behind the thinking of Niccolo Machiavelli, who understood something most people never even notice. Humans reveal weakness through emotion, urgency, and the desperate desire to be understood. The more you react, the more predictable you become. And predictability, that's exactly what manipulators crave. They don't need to overpower you. They just need you to talk, to hurry, to expose where the pressure lands. In today's world, at work, in social circles, even in your most ordinary interactions, the person who talks the most is often the easiest to control. Meanwhile, the quiet observer is collecting information, controlling their reactions and shifting the balance without creating the slightest confrontation. Why? Because silence breeds uncertainty, and uncertainty makes people cautious. Imagine having that kind of power, the ability to outsmart dirty players without arguing, without emotional outbursts, without spilling unnecessary words. And here's the promise. If you truly absorb this idea, you won't just understand silence, you'll wield it. You'll stay calmer under pressure, become harder to read, and turn yourself into someone far more difficult for anyone to manipulate. Say it with conviction. My silence is my power. Silence exposes intent. People think silence is passive, but in reality, silence is pressure. Manipulators depend on interaction to function. They poke, provoke, hint, or stir up tiny disturbances, not to communicate, but to trigger a reaction. The instant you react emotionally, they learn about you. What bothers you, what you care about, how quickly you respond, how much control you truly have. But when you don't react, everything flips. The pressure shifts back onto them. Suddenly, they don't know what you noticed, what you're thinking, what you might do next. That uncertainty forces them to keep filling the silence, revealing more, exposing cracks, repeating themselves, adding details they never meant to share. Silence isn't avoidance, it's observation. It lets the truth unfold right in front of you. Stillness breaks their rhythm, and when the rhythm breaks, mistakes appear. Silence also gives you space, space for your emotions to settle, space to choose your response rather than hand it over automatically. And when you control the pace, once you control the power, dirty players rely on your speed just as much as your emotions. They expect you to rush. But when you slow down, when you reclaim your timing, you become unpredictable, unshakable, unreadable. And that's where your real strength begins. In reality, instant reactions almost always signal emotional pressure, like a flashing sign saying the situation is controlling you instead of the other way around. Isn't that shocking when you really think about it? A deliberate delay sends a completely different message. It shows stability, calm, self-control. It tells the other person, I'm not playing by your clock. And timing, oh yes, timing is where influence quietly lives. Dirty players love to manufacture fake urgency, a sudden demand, a push for a quick decision, a loaded message begging for an immediate reply. Well, the goal isn't speed or efficiency. The goal is to stop you from thinking clearly. But the moment you slow down, their strategy starts cracking. A pause creates space, and space creates clarity. In that space, you see things you would normally miss: tone, hidden intent, subtle pressure, contradictions. Suddenly, you can tell whether the moment is real or completely engineered. But wait, the psychological impact goes even deeper. When you don't respond right away, uncertainty begins bubbling on their side. They start wondering, did it work? Did they notice? Are they upset? Are they thinking? What are they planning to do? Isn't it amazing how quickly the emotional weight shifts back onto them? Instead of you scrambling to manage the situation, they begin wrestling with their own doubt. That's how silence and timing work together. While you're not ignoring anyone, you're choosing the moment that strengthens your position. Another powerful effect of slowing your pace is emotional neutrality. When you wait, your initial feelings settle. You shift from impulse to intention. Decisions made from a calm mind are harder to manipulate, harder to challenge, harder to reverse. Dirty players depend on emotional immediacy. They want frustration, fear, or defensiveness to drive your choices. But time cools emotional heat, and once the heat fades, their leverage evaporates. There's also a reputational impact. People who react instantly look reactive. People who take their time look deliberate, grounded. Observers start approaching you more carefully because they know you can't be rushed. Controlling your pace also stops information leakage. Quick responses reveal pressure points. Measured responses reveal almost nothing. The less others can read your urgency, the less control they have over your decisions. This doesn't mean delaying everything or acting distant. It means refusing to operate on someone else's emotional schedule. You respond when you are ready. You decide when clarity comes. You move when timing strengthens your position. Because the person who controls the pace controls the direction. Speed serves pressure, timing serves power. And once you stop reacting on demand, dirty players lose one of their strongest tools. If they can't rush you, they can't steer you. Never reveal your emotional temperature, because dirty players study your emotions before they ever study your words. They watch your face, your tone, your energy. Emotions are signals, and the moment someone sees what affects you, they see your leverage. If they spot frustration, they know they struck a nerve. If they sense anxiety, they know there's pressure. If they see defensiveness, they know you feel exposed, and they will use that entry point again and again. This is why emotional neutrality is one of the most powerful silent defenses you can master. Many people believe honesty means expressing whatever they feel in the moment, but in competitive environments, visible emotion becomes information, and information becomes vulnerability. Dirty players constantly test reactions: a rude comment, a delayed reply, a subtle contradiction. They're not always trying to win right away. They're measuring you, asking one silent question: what moves this person? If you react, you give them the answer. But if your emotional temperature stays steady, one of their tests produce no data. They become uncertain, cautious, doubtful. Emotional control doesn't mean suppressing feelings. It means managing what you display. You might feel irritation or concern internally, but outwardly you remain calm and consistent. And that consistency throws manipulators off balance. People expect emotional cause and effect. Apply pressure, get a reaction. But when no reaction comes, their confidence weakens. They question their approach. They hesitate. Meanwhile, your clarity increases because emotional neutrality keeps you detached enough to observe everything: escalations, manipulation patterns, behavior shifts. Distance creates awareness, while emotional visibility traps you inside the game. Over time, your reputation changes. When people can't read your emotional state, they become careful. They avoid pushing too far because they don't know what affects you or how you'll respond. That uncertainty transforms into respect. This doesn't mean becoming cold. It means becoming stable. Your reactions are intentional, not automatic. Your presence stays consistent even under pressure, and stability makes you incredibly difficult to influence. Dirty players rely on emotional feedback. Remove the feedback, and they lose their steering wheel entirely. Because when your emotional temperature stays controlled, no one can find your leverage. And without leverage, they cannot control the direction. Most people assume influence comes from saying the right thing, delivering the perfect line, or crafting the smartest response. But isn't it surprising that real influence often comes from saying less and simply letting the other person talk more? Dirty players depend heavily on controlling the narrative. They want to shape the conversation, guide perception, and manage what information comes to the surface. But this control only works when both sides are actively speaking, explaining, reacting. The minute you reduce your verbal presence, everything shifts. Silence opens space, and wow, people really hate empty space. When there's no immediate response, they rush to fill the gap. They add extra details, repeat themselves, clarify things no one even questioned. And sometimes they reveal motivations they never meant to expose. This isn't manipulation, it's pure human psychology. Silence builds tension, and tension makes people talk. Dirty players struggle the most because their words are normally calculated and measured. But when they sense the conversation slipping away from their control, they start compensating. Suddenly they're explaining too much, pushing too hard, shifting topics too quickly, even contradicting their own earlier points without noticing. What started as a careful strategy turns into unintentional self-exposure. Unfortunately, most people ruin this natural unraveling by responding too soon. They jump in, challenge immediately, defend themselves instantly, and in doing so, poof, they release the pressure that would have revealed everything. The real key is restraint. When someone makes a questionable statement, you don't have to fight it right away. A calm pause can be more powerful than any argument. When someone gives a weak explanation, you don't need to pounce. Silence gives them room to keep talking, and weakness exposes itself. Minimal responses are another subtle tool. Small acknowledgments, neutral expressions, simple open-ended questions that gently encourage them to continue. Not to confront, not to attack, but to keep the information flowing. The more they talk, the clearer the patterns become. Tone shifts, defensive wording, over-justification, contradictions. You start to see everything because you're not busy competing for control of the conversation. Observation replaces reaction. And there's a deeper strategic advantage. The more someone talks, the more they psychologically commit to their story. That commitment pushes them into bolder claims, firmer positions, and riskier statements. And the stronger their stance becomes, the easier it is for everyone to recognize the cracks. Over time, people will notice something different about you. So conversations shift. Others begin choosing their words more carefully because they know you aren't rushing to speak. You're listening, analyzing, remembering. That kind of listening creates quiet authority. Dirty players expect resistance or compliance, but they rarely expect patience. They rely on emotional motion, not calm stillness. When you let them talk without interruption, they lose control of structure, pacing, and precision. Eventually, they reveal far more than they intended because the one who speaks less controls the space, and the one who controls the space controls what becomes visible. And then comes one of the most powerful moves of all, removing the reward of your attention. Dirty players don't always want control. Sometimes they simply want attention. And attention is energy. It signals relevance and tells them their behavior is working. Positive or negative doesn't matter. Frustration, defensiveness, argument, emotional engagement, it all feeds them. Once they know they can pull your focus whenever they want, they don't need to overpower you. They just need to trigger you. That's why selective attention is such a game changer. Most people hand out attention automatically, responding to every jab, every comment, every passive-aggressive poke. But every reaction reinforces the behavior. Attention is a reward, and rewarded behavior repeats. Dirty players test small disruptions to see what captures your focus. If you react even slightly, they've identified a pressure point. But when your attention disappears, everything changes. No emotional engagement means their actions lose impact. No visible reaction means no feedback. Without feedback, they can't measure influence. And without influence, their motivation collapses. The secret is emotional disengagement without confrontation. You don't argue, explain, or get irritated. You just reduce the energy you give. Your responses become shorter. Your tone remains steady. Your engagement stays minimal. The interaction becomes unrewarding, even pointless. In time, they grow uncertain. They may escalate briefly, trying to spark a reaction, but when none comes, the pattern dissolves. Many people struggle with this because they mistake constant attention for strength or politeness. But constant engagement actually signals availability, and availability lowers your leverage. Selective attention sends a far stronger message. Now, it shows your focus is intentional and cannot be hijacked. People begin respecting your boundaries. Provocations decrease. Unnecessary tension fades. And most importantly, your mental energy stays protected. Because dirty players rely on emotional access. And when you control that access, you control everything. When access to your attention becomes difficult, their influence weakens all by itself, almost effortlessly. No confrontation is required. No dramatic explanation is needed. The simple absence of reward does the work over time, quietly and powerfully. The dynamic begins to shift in your favor. Instead of you reacting to their behavior slowly adjusts to the boundaries you've set. Isn't it incredible that the strongest signal you can send isn't resistance, but indifference? And when your attention is no longer easy to earn, your position becomes far harder to disturb. Protecting your information by speaking less becomes another silent weapon. In any power dynamic, information is leverage. Dirty players aren't always trying to defeat you directly. They're often just collecting data. They listen closely not to understand you, but to map you. Your priorities, your fears, your goals, your frustrations. Every tiny detail helps them predict your next move. And most people give that information away for free. They talk to build connection, share to seem honest, explain to appear cooperative. But excessive openness in the wrong environment creates exposure. Each time you describe what stresses you, someone learns where pressure can be applied. Each time you reveal your goals, and someone sees what you're trying to protect. Each time you confess doubts, someone notices where your confidence wavers. Dirty players rarely attack randomly. They wait, they watch, and then they apply pressure exactly where it will hurt the most. That's why controlled communication is a quiet form of strength. Speaking less doesn't mean being unfriendly or cold. It means being intentional about what you reveal and when you reveal it. Not everyone needs access to your thoughts. Not everyone should understand your plans. Not everyone deserves to know what affects you emotionally. When information becomes limited, prediction becomes difficult. And when others cannot predict you, they cannot plan around you. People underestimate how much their casual conversations reveal. Complaints about workload reveal pressure points. Stories about personal conflict reveal emotional triggers. Sharing future plans reveals timing and direction. Alone, these seem harmless. Together, they form a psychological blueprint. Dirty players track these patterns. They remember what irritates you, what motivates you, what shakes you. They know exactly how to unbalance you. But when you reduce unnecessary sharing, the pattern breaks. Communication becomes concise, neutral. Conversations stay surface level unless trust is earned. Your priorities remain private. Your emotional state stays controlled. This creates strategic ambiguity, and ambiguity makes people cautious. Without clear information, they hesitate, unsure how to approach you or influence you. People who speak selectively are often seen as more thoughtful and deliberate, yet their words carry more weight because they aren't constant. When they finally do speak, people listen. Restraint increases perceived authority. Limited information also protects you from indirect manipulation. If someone knows your plans too early, they can obstruct them. If they know your concerns, they can amplify doubt. If they know your deadlines, they can apply timing pressure. Controlling disclosure removes those openings. The goal isn't silence, it's mastery. You decide what is shared, when it's shared, and who earns that privilege. Dirty players rely more on volunteered information than forced information. And when that flow slows, their influence fades naturally. The less others know about your internal world, the harder it becomes to move you from the outside. And when your information is protected, your position becomes far more stable. Finally, turn observation into advantage. Most people underestimate how powerful quiet observation truly is. They think influence requires louder words, faster actions, or stronger assertions. But Machiavellian wisdom shows the real edge lies in understanding before acting. Careful observation reveals patterns others miss, the subtle cues that expose intent, the tiny gaps that open opportunity. Dirty players rely heavily on assumptions. They test your reactions, measure consistency, interpret habits. When they think they've figured out your triggers, they feel in control. But observation flips the game. When you watch without reacting, you collect information without giving any. Observation is more than seeing, it's interpretation. Notice who subtly tries to dominate a conversation. Notice who over-explains, who repeats themselves, who gets uncomfortable and quickly redirects attention. These are clues, flashing signals that reveal insecurities, intentions, and tactics. Someone who overcompensates for a weakness is showing you exactly where pressure could be applied, provided they don't realize you're paying attention. Timing becomes everything. Observing without commenting lets you store insights for the perfect moment, the moment when action will be most effective. Impulsive reactions reveal awareness. Patience gives you power. While they think they hold momentum, your awareness lets you anticipate moves, see escalation coming, and exploit hesitation. Observation also protects you from being baited. Dirty players love to provoke, hoping you'll react and confirm their assumptions. But when you stay silent, simply watching, they expose themselves. Their miscalculations, contradictions, and over-reliance on certain tactics become painfully visible. Because the moment you stop reacting and start observing, the whole game changes, and the advantage quietly shifts to you. Every small misstep is data, and every subtle contradiction becomes a chance to understand someone's true intent long before you ever decide how to act. Isn't that incredible? When you start recognizing this, a strange psychological tension begins to form around you. People suddenly realize their usual tricks aren't provoking you. You're tracking them. And once they sense that shift, they grow cautious, second-guessing themselves, delaying decisions, even over-explaining in ways they never intended. Silence and patience transform them from aggressors into performers, revealing their entire playbook without a single confrontation. Observation sharpens your own awareness too. As you watch others, you start to see your own blind spots, the reactions you tend to show, the signals you unintentionally give away. Controlling what you reveal while absorbing everything around you creates an unshakable, almost untouchable position. When you turn observation into advantage, you stop chasing outcomes. Instead, you let the environment unfold in ways that naturally benefit you. You act only when the clarity is undeniable and the leverage belongs to you. Dirty players may try to manipulate, But without access to your reactions, they're left operating in darkness. Then comes one of the most underestimated strategies of all: mastering controlled withdrawal. Dirty players thrive on interaction. Your reactions, your emotions, your attention. Every response you give is a signal they can measure and twist. But the moment you strategically step back, everything changes. Controlled withdrawal is not avoidance. It's intention. It's knowing when your presence strengthens your position and when it weakens it. Most people stay entangled in every argument because they think stepping back looks like weakness. But in reality, retreat often creates more leverage than fighting does. It forces the other person to move without your predictable feedback, and suddenly they are the ones operating blindly. When you withdraw, a unique kind of psychological pressure forms. People begin questioning themselves. Did they go too far? Are you reconsidering them? Are you planning something? They may escalate or hesitate, but either way, the uncertainty benefits you. Dirty players rely on momentum, expecting quick reactions, emotional engagement, or validation. Removing yourself breaks that momentum instantly. They're forced to operate in a vacuum where every calculation becomes less accurate and every tactic loses force. Withdrawal also protects your emotional energy. Arguments and explanations drain your clarity. Stepping back restores it. You regain perspective. Watch patterns unfold and wait for the moment when your action actually matters. Patience becomes your weapon. Your absence signals something powerful. Your attention is valuable. Your presence is a choice, not an obligation. People notice when access to you stops being automatic. Provocations decrease, manipulation becomes inconsistent, and others start calculating more carefully before approaching you. What truly strengthens this strategy is its quietness. Controlled withdrawal doesn't require drama or explanations. You simply remove your energy and re-engage only when you decide. People learn that attempts to pressure or provoke you are met not with emotional reaction, but with measured restraint. And when applied consistently, your environment transforms. Dirty players find fewer openings. Your boundaries become respected without a fight. Your influence grows quietly but decisively. If you've stayed with me through all of this, you now understand something most people never even notice. Power isn't loud. It isn't in arguments or constant action. Real influence is quiet, precise, and invisible until it becomes undeniable. Dirty players will keep testing. They will provoke, mislead, measure reactions. It's all they know. But when you apply strategic silence, selective attention, controlled withdrawal, and deep observation, the entire game changes. You stop reacting to them and start shaping the environment itself. You let them expose themselves while you remain steady and unreadable. This isn't about cruelty, it's about self-command. It's about treating your attention, energy, and presence as valuable resources. Once you treat them that way, everyone else does too. People begin calculating before they act because the easy leverage they once had no longer exists. They realize that interacting with you has a cost they can't predict. The most formidable individuals aren't loud or aggressive. They're the unreadable ones. The ones who move with purpose, who reveal nothing they don't want to, who cannot be pushed off balance. That's the position you now occupy. The one who moves without being moved. The one whose mind cannot be mapped. The one whose reactions cannot be anticipated. Remember this truth. Mastery over others starts with mastery over yourself. When you stop explaining, stop justifying, and stop reacting on demand, you reclaim your power. When you walk away strategically, observe calmly, and limit what you reveal, you create a fortress no manipulation can penetrate. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need to prove yourself. You don't need to correct every misconception. What matters is your alignment, your clarity, your ability to remain calm while the world around you stirs. So move forward quietly, act deliberately, let others exhaust themselves against your restraint. Because influence is earned through composure, and untouchable power is revealed in silence. Now drop this affirmation: I am untouchable.